What is going on, guys? My name is Frank, and in this video I want to warn you about some things to be careful of when purchasing your leopard gecko. I also want to give you 3 tips on how to make sure that you get the best purchase possible. Selling in the billions each year, Rainbow Mealworms is your one-stop shop for all your insect needs. Their quality feeders and A-plus customer service keep me coming back to support the health and growth of all of our animals. Visit them today at rainbowmealworms.net to place your order. Alright guys, well I got my new friend right here to help me shoot this video. We'll get into him later and explain his role in all of this. But just in the thick of breeding season, there's going to be a lot of you guys right now looking for a leopard gecko purchase. Either a baby, a juvenile, or an adult breeder. If you're looking for a baby, make sure you ask the breeder how old it is and if it's eating well, because that will give you an idea of the health of the animal. For example, in our inbreeding video, which I'll leave a link to here in the top right corner, we go over the fact that sometimes really high quality geckos are a little bit small for their size because they've been inbred so much. So you just want to be aware if you're buying into an inbred gecko, and you could usually tell that by the age. And the breeder should really be honest with you as well. But in case they don't, you could kind of do the math yourself. If you buy a gecko that is the size of a baby, but is 2 months old, you know that something is wrong with that gecko. Or not necessarily wrong, but off. And you want to make sure that you protect yourself in that purchase and know what you're getting into. Juveniles are pretty good because they're already well started and most of the time a blatantly obvious healthy gecko. You know, they'll have a little bit of a chunky tail already. They'll be like 2 months old but really big because they're eating really well and growing really well. Leopard geckos grow so fast. And then adults. The question that you want to ask the breeder is, how old is this gecko? When was the last time that this gecko bred? And if it's a female, when was the last time that this leopard gecko laid eggs? Because leopard gecko females tend to start to decline in fertility and clutch amount between years 6 and 8. Now that doesn't mean that they can't produce geckos into their 10, 11, or 12 or more years old, but you might, keyword being might, see a significant drop in fertility. So if you buy a gecko that's 12 years old, thinking that you're going to be breeding it and it's going to lay 20 eggs for you, you just want to be aware of the situation. Ask the breeder. Now, as far as quality is concerned, there's 3 tips that I have for you on how to pick a good quality animal. So let's take a look at some pictures here that I'm going to throw up on screen. All of these pictures that you're about to see is the same animal. We're going to compare and contrast 2 different babies in 2 different pictures. Both of these pictures were on the same thread on this person's post, but you could see a drastic difference in color and saturation from one picture to the other. And can you guess which picture was on the forefront of the thread? Yep, you guessed it, the brighter picture. And so you want to be careful if the breeder doesn't provide other pictures for you, except pictures that all look the same and all look on fire, then something is probably up. Because I can tell you from experience of taking thousands of photos of leopard geckos, especially tangerine leopard geckos, they will look different in almost every single picture based on the angle, the lighting, whether your camera is doing some kind of auto coloration. So tip number 1 to making sure that you get what you're expecting out of a purchase, especially if you're spending a lot of money, is ask for lots of photos, and even specifically photos in different lighting. And you can also be honest with the breeder and just be like, hey, I know photographs can be a little bit difficult sometimes. Can you send me a photograph of exactly what this animal looks like in person, or as close to what this animal looks like in person? Now, what I like to do a lot of times is if I'm selling somebody an animal, I would rather that they be impressed when they get the animal than disappointed. So I might even send them a photo that's a little bit worse quality than what the animal actually looks like in person. You would rather them open the box and be like, wow, this is an amazing animal, than open the box and be like, wow, I overpaid. Does that make sense? But the alternative is get an honest photograph. Between all the different camera angles, lighting angles that just naturally happens on accident sometimes when you're taking photos of geckos, if someone's buying a gecko from me, I'll make sure that I send them a photo of what the gecko actually looks like in person. Even if that means that I have to angle the camera in a certain way and look at the gecko in my hand and be like, what is the closest? Do what you gotta do to get whatever kind of photo you need to make that animal look like it does in person. Sometimes you could even increase the brightness on your phone, and that decreases the saturation of the gecko. So if you take a picture of a gecko in the dark, a lot of times the gecko looks more colorful than it actually is. So if you turn up the brightness on that photo, you are now editing that photo, but you're making it look more realistic. As you turn the brightness up on that photo, you're actually making the color of the animal look closer to what it looks like in real life, so you're not doing wrong, in my opinion. Tip number 2, ask for pictures of the parents of that leopard gecko. You want to know the lineage that leopard gecko is coming from. If it's an inferno tangerine, if it's a blood tangerine, if it's an electric, if it's a clown, emerine, mandarin, all of these different lines of tangerines have been bred within themselves to attain a certain look or saturation or color. Sometimes they've been crossed. So you might see like what we're doing here is we're doing a lot of inferno mandarin crosses. And if you watch my inbreeding video, a lot of the runty geckos that we got from that project was inferno to inferno geckos, because inferno to inferno has been bred for dozens of years in captivity. So you need to start expanding those bloodlines, breeding into other tangerine bloodlines to maintain that orange color, but spread the genetics out a little bit so they're not condensing and causing for deformities, birth defects, or other inbred associated issues. But if you ask for pictures of the parents, you could see the quality of the parents and you can have a good idea of the quality of the gecko, even though you're not seeing it in person. If it had really good parents, you know that it has a chance to be really nice in person, and it also has a chance to have really good genetics to pass on. Tip number 3, which is where this guy comes into play, ask for pictures of the babies if that gecko has produced any babies. So this is a 6-year-old blood tangerine male. When I saw pictures of it on Morph Market, you could see almost 100% carrot tail. It's really nice. That's what really caught my attention. Plus, there was older pictures of this male from when he was 1 year old, and I could see that he was more saturated. So I reached out to the breeder. The breeder let me know that his color dulled in time, which is normal for leopard geckos, but she also showed me pictures of his babies from last year. And as a tangerine, his babies were already popping out orange. If you know anything about tangerine leopard geckos, if they're low quality tangerines, the babies will pop out yellow and then turn orange over time. If they're a high quality, strong tangerine genetic animal, the babies will start to pop out light orange or deeper hues of orange and get even more colorful and saturated as time goes on. So not only was I able to look at older pictures of this gecko when he was a young stud, but I was able to look at pictures of his babies from last year and make an educated decision to say, you know what, this gecko is the quality I'm looking for, and this year we're putting him to the test breeding. We're breeding him to some wild types, some normals, some bolds, some tangerines. We're breeding him to a whole bunch of stuff to test out the strength of those genetics. But if it turns out anything like my theory, based off of his younger photos and his current baby photos of what he's producing, I think he's gonna produce some fire stuff, and we will have some inferno, mandarin, blood tangerine crosses with really good carrot tail. And his carrot tail even started fading, but for a tangerine carrot tail leopard gecko, that's a pretty significant amount of coverage. And we have other leopard geckos here that have decent coverage, so we're gonna breed him to them and hopefully start our project of getting 100% carrot tail. Now, Geckopia has a blood tangerine leopard gecko that's like 99% carrot tail that I think he got from Korea. And there's a breeder up in Canada that I'm looking into to where we could possibly buy geckos that have 100% carrot tail from her. So what if we bred him to those geckos? I could only imagine the quality that they would produce. So one other thing that you want to be aware of that I just mentioned is how leopard geckos age. Let's take a look at those 2 leopard geckos that we saw at the beginning of the video and what they look like later on in life. Now, I was able to study many different photographs and I think even read this guy's commentary, it was a while ago, and confirm that these are the same 2 geckos. You could look at the pattern on the tail of this brighter gecko that has more white here, and you can also look at the pattern that starts near its hind legs, and you could also see how it was a brighter gecko when it was younger. So I believe, don't quote me on this, I don't remember reading this in the guy's description, but I know that he works with white and yellow. I believe there's a good chance that this baby is white and yellow and the other baby is just a normal tangerine. Now, the thing that's really tricky about this photo is this breeder uses this photo everywhere. It's in some of their logo designs, it's on a lot of their social media pages, and so you might think, wow, this leopard gecko is amazing, I want to buy it. But don't go by one photograph. I'll put up on screen right now. You can see these 2 photographs are of the same geckos. As you get multiple photos from breeders, take a look at each photo they send you. If you have really, really good photos and then some not so good photos, just assume that the leopard gecko's actual color in person is somewhere between the 2. It's not as good as they're showing you. It's not as bad as they're showing you. It's somewhere in between. And you could even ask the leopard gecko breeder for a really good photo and a really bad photo. But what I like to do is, hey, can you send me a photo that is really true and accurate to the color of this leopard gecko in person? Because again, something that you got to be aware of, if you see leopard gecko photos taken in the dark, they often look a lot better and a lot more saturated than photos taken in light. Now, I think I know why the breeders do that, is because it's really hard to get an accurate photo of your leopard gecko's color when light is shining on it. I will give you that. But at the same time, it's really easy to make your leopard geckos look better than they do in person with a simple light change or angle change of your camera, even if you're not editing that photo. So taking a look at these 2 geckos that have now aged, and I think they were about a year old at this point by the time this photo was taken, so you could really see how their colors settled in. So if you bought them as a baby and you're expecting red geckos all the way through, you might be disappointed, especially if you don't ask for multiple photos of the gecko before you buy them and ask for baby pictures that the leopard geckos are currently producing so you can see the strength of their genetics that they're passing on, and also true to color or accurate photographs of the geckos. Now, don't think you're being disrespectful to the breeder. You have the right as a customer, especially if you're spending a lot of money, to make sure that you're getting what you're paying for and also expecting. I'm sure any good breeder would not want you disappointed in the gecko that they sent you, because they put a lot of work into that gecko. So I'm not trying to bash, or I'm not trying to talk bad about how we, sometimes all of us in the reptile hobby, take better pictures than what our animals look like in person, whether it's on purpose or accidentally. That's really good for promotional purposes. Like, I think that's why this breeder whose geckos I'm showing right now, I think that's why he does it, but it's not so good for sales necessarily, because it's kind of false advertisement in a way. That's up to the breeder and the customer. If the customer's happy receiving something that's not as good as what the pictures look like they thought they were purchasing, that's okay if that's what they want to do. But I know me as a customer, I want to try to purchase what I think I'm getting, the quality that I think I'm looking at in this photograph. So I made this video just to help you kind of set your expectations a little bit and different ways to bring your expectations to reality. Because I want you surprised and in love when you open up that box and be like, wow, this gecko was everything that I thought it was and more. So what did you guys think about this video? Again, I made it just to be a helpful video, things to be aware of as a customer buying leopard geckos, whether it's the first time that you're buying geckos or whether you're trying to expand your breeding operation. You want to know the quality you're getting, right? So I figured I would share some of these tips that I use in purchasing and selecting the leopard geckos that I add to our collection here to enhance our genetics. So I hope you guys had a good time in this video. Look forward to the geckos that this little guy produces. Please give me some name suggestions. I still don't have a name for him yet, and I would love to name him. Again, he's a blood tangerine leopard gecko. I think he's 100% blood. I'd have to double check his genetics. Suggestions, if possible, would be awesome. By the way, today I'm really excited. We just hit 4,000 subscribers on YouTube, and that's all thanks to you guys. Of course, we put up videos for you guys to like, but I like giving you guys credit where credit is due, and this channel could not be successful without the help and the support of the people that subscribe, like, and follow us. So thank you guys very much. Please keep sharing this with your friends and family. I'll see you in the next video, and remember, until then, have a Geeky Gecko great day. Peace!